Welcome to the road to growth, success of an entrepreneur.
We've raised the bar.
Learn firsthand from successful business owners and create your own path to success.
I'm going to show you how great I am.
It's time to hit the road to growth with team lead of the Enriquez Group, Realtor Vinny.
Hi, all you Road to Growth listeners. Today, I'm lucky enough to have Michelle Seiler Tucker. She is the founder and CEO of Seiler Tucker Incorporated. Thank you for being on the show, Michelle.
Thank you for having me, Vinny. It's a pleasure to be here in San Diego. I wish I was on the beach with you.
Yeah, we were talking. So you were talking about how your daughter lives out this way, right? And you have a lot of family from California because you were born here, right?
No, my daughter doesn't live here. My daughter lives with me. She's 10 years old.
Oh,
but
sorry,
her
okay.
nanny
Okay.
used to live in New Orleans and went back to San Diego. So her nanny lives in San Diego. But yeah, so I was born in Long Beach, California. So I do have relatives.
Well, and we were talking about how you're hearing a lot of people transitioning from out of California to New Orleans, or at least outside of California. What brought you from Long Beach to
Yeah, so that's a funny story. My father is from a family of 12 siblings, and he basically had enough because apparently they were fighting all the time. And he just told us kids, me and my three older brothers, I'm the youngest, the only girl. And he said, hey, we're moving. We're moving to Texas. So he packed us up, and like in the middle of the night, I remember riding with my older brother, Robert, and drove all the way to Austin, Texas, because he wanted to get away from his siblings. And so we lived in Austin, Texas, and then several of his siblings followed him to Texas. And that's a funny story, but that's how we ended up in Texas. He had a business that he owned in California. You know, he had a business he owned, but he just was ready to get out and leave the family behind.
How old are you said?
I think I was 10.
So how does that play on a 10-year-old to move everything you knew in the middle of the night? Yeah,
I think it's much easier on a 10-year-old than it would be on like a 16-year-old, right?
Yeah.
Because, when you start getting into junior high and high school, you develop these real friendships and you don't want to leave. For me, it was okay. I had my brothers, it was okay. It didn't really bother me. I was always a flexible child anyway, that, I always loved meeting strangers. I was not your typical girl that would play with toys and dolls. I was always walking around with a notebook and a pen, and I would walk up to strangers and ask them a bunch of questions. So I was always, the type of person that was a people person that could walk up to anybody and strike a conversation with anyone.
So you said your dad had a company in California, picked up, kind of left to Texas, brought all you kids. So it seems like you're pretty involved or kind of aware of what an entrepreneurial life was about at that age.
Yes and no. My dad had a business, but that was it. I didn't really come from an entrepreneur family, although, I did go with him to, his business. He had a couple of businesses, so I went with him to his businesses a couple of times. So I had a little bit of exposure to it. I knew that I didn't want to, work for anybody because I don't like anyone telling me what to do. It's my biggest pet peeve. Don't tell me what to do. So I knew that I was always going to probably be my own boss. And I've, owned many different companies in different industries, and I still own different companies in different industries. But then I did kind of get sucked up in corporate America, where I went to work for a Fortune 500 company because they recruited me, a small little company called Xerox. So I went to work for them, and I was only there for a year because I missed entrepreneurship so much.
Wow. Do you remember the first company you ever had?
Yes, I do. I don't remember exactly how old I was. It was a wedding publication. And it was the licensing rights for a wedding publication. And so I did that. I did that for a while. I've had event companies. I've had different publishing companies. Medical. I've had medical legal marketing companies, technology, different industries.
With,
Yep.
I mean, talking to a lot of different business owners and entrepreneurs, I get to hear, okay, I tried this company, I tried this company, and it seems like the companies that really work out, at least for the people that I've had, have been some kind of emotional investment to the company. Was there something there with all the different variety of companies that you took on, or did you look at companies in a different way?
I look at companies in a completely different way. I don't get tied to companies like everybody else does. I look at companies as a vehicle, as an asset. You build your asset, you sell it. You build your asset, you sell it. I don't get emotionally involved with companies. I feel like when people make decisions based on emotions, then they don't make good decisions whatsoever. So I try to keep emotions out of business as much as possible. That's why so many businesses don't sell, because there's so much seller's remorse that sits in, because everybody looks at their business as their baby, and I don't want to part with their baby until they have to because a catastrophic event occurred. Well, by then it's too late. By then, if a catastrophic event occurred, then your business is typically trending downward, not trending up. So you really need to treat your business as an asset. You got to stop thinking of it as your child. And so I've never been emotionally tied to any of my businesses. If I am going to be emotionally tied to any of them, I would say maybe my M&A firm, because that's where all my blood, sweat, and tears are, because it's such a difficult industry. And, I've been in it for about 20 years, and it's a tough industry. So I would say if I was going to be emotional about any industry, any business, that this would be it.
So if you're listening right now, MMA, mergers and acquisitions. So when did you switch over from building a company to, I guess, partnering up with company? Because that has to feel like a different roadmap, correct?
When did I what? When did I go from
So
building?
when you started building companies at the beginning of like your wedding publication, right? You built that from the ground up, and then over time you started, I guess, partnering up with companies, correct? With the
I started selling businesses first. So
okay.
I left Xerox. I was at Xerox for about 6 months, and my nickname became the closer. So whenever somebody couldn't close a deal, they would bring me in and they would say, "Call the closer, she can do it." And so then, but right away, my manager came to me and said, "You should apply for the regional vice president position. You'll never get it at Xerox because you've only been here for 6 months and you're up against people who've been here for years, but you should do it anyway." So I did it. I threw my name in a hat. It was a 3-month grueling process. I ended up getting it. So within 6 months, I moved up the corporate ladder in Xerox, but then I realized how much I hated it, because I love dealing with clients. I'm a people person. I like solving problems. I like coming up with solutions. I like selling. I like the art of the deal. And, when you're management at corporate America, you're really having meetings to schedule more meetings, and you really don't accomplish anything. So, I started looking for a business to buy. And because this is going to answer your question, but I started looking for a business to buy, stumbled across a franchisor, wanted to buy their franchise and keep my day job at Xerox because it was a great position, great money, great benefits. And I knew I was going to go up that corporate ladder pretty quickly. Well, they said, "Look, we don't want you to buy a franchise. We want you to, partner with us and help us sell franchises." So I said, "Look, they knew of me. They knew of my husband. My husband actually knew him." And they said, "We'll give you a franchise." So I said, "Well, let me try it out for 6 months because you're not successful. So I don't know if I want to leave this great position at Xerox for a company that's not successful." So I did it for 6 months, and within 6 months, quadrupled my income at Xerox. So I knew it was time to leave. So that started my franchise development, franchise sales, and franchise consulting career. I've sold hundreds upon hundreds of franchises. And then they did what a lot of companies do. They never built a solid foundation. So we grew, but they never built the infrastructure to handle the growth. So I could tell, so they started overpromising, under-delivering. They weren't servicing franchisees. I realized very quickly our values were not aligned. So that's when I said, "Well, it's time for me to move on. It's time for you to buy me out." And then that's when I transitioned into, I'm like, "Well, what am I going to do now?" And that's when I transitioned into selling businesses, first small businesses. And then very quickly I started selling larger businesses. Then I realized that what Steve Forbes says is true. 8 out of 10 businesses will not sell. 8 out of 10. So then I'm like, if I don't fix them, if I don't tweak them, if I don't build them, grow them to sell, then I'm going to starve to death. So that's when I started partnering with business owners, investing my money, investing my resources, expertise, et cetera, to grow these businesses, and in some cases buy the businesses and flip them.
Do you think there's, I mean, being that you've sold so many businesses, right, and bought so many businesses, do you think there's a roadmap of kind of what you'd look at of, okay, this is a company, if someone's listening right now, they built a business or building a business and they're looking to sell their business, what's something they should do, processes should go through, anything like that?
Well, there's a lot of stuff they should do. Number one, they should read Exit Rich because a lot of business owners think that their business is sellable, and it's not. And it's not sellable for a multitude of reasons. Typically, the number one reason it's not sellable is because business owners have unrealistic expectations of what their business is worth. They'll come to me and say, I want $10 million for my business, and their business is making $50,000 a year. Well, nobody's going to pay you $10 million to make 50 grand a year. So, and when I ask them, how did you come up with $10 million? Their answer is always, well, that's what I need to retire on, or that's what I need to put 5 girls through college and pay for 5 girls' weddings, or that's what I need to buy my next business. It's never based upon the value of their company. It's based upon what they need, want, not what their value really is. And buyers don't care about what you need or what you want. Buyers are only going to pay for what they feel is value to them. So that's one of the number one reasons businesses are not sellable, because sellers have unrealistic expectations. The other reason that businesses are not sellable is because owners are the business. You pull the owner. The owner has created a glorified job, not an actual business. So once you pluck that owner out of the business, there is no business anymore. And there's lots of examples to illustrate that. Dental practices. One dentist, been there for 40 years, no other dentist. You take that dentist out of the practice, you have dental hygienists, but that's a personal thing that patients want their same dentist, right? Yeah. You don't necessarily want to go to a different dentist. Same thing with a chiropractor, same thing with an attorney, etc. There are so many businesses where all the intellectual property is in the owner's head. All the relationships are with that owner. You pull that owner out of the business, there is no company anymore.
Yeah, I've heard of people selling companies, but they do kind of a transition period where you bring in another attorney or someone else for the 5-year period, 6-year period, whatever it might be, and they slowly start kind of getting familiar with that new individual.
So that's the best way to do it is actually build a business where you do hire other attorneys, build a business where you hire other chiropractors, but you got to make sure they're going to stay. And then you want to make sure that you have the right documentation, the employee contracts, and non-competes if you can, because I've seen it happen so many times. Like, we're trying to sell a chiropractic business, and he said, Michelle, I have 2 chiropractors. Well, guess what? I bring a buyer. Guess what? The 2 chiropractors tell the buyer, oh, we're not staying. One says, I'm moving, and the other one says, as soon as the doctor leaves, I'm gone too. So now you're back to square one because the owner doesn't live here, or doesn't live in the state that the business is in. And now there's going to be nobody to run the business. There's going to be no chiropractor. So you really have to build a business. Plus, he had no compete. So one of the chiropractors can go right across the street and compete. So nobody wants to buy that business. You want to make sure that you build an actual business that can run without you, that you can take a vacation for months upon months and months upon months at a time. You want to make sure you have employment contracts. You want to make sure you have those non-competes, so you really have a business that somebody can buy.
Let's jump back to the first one where you talk about the emotional aspect of it, where someone's saying, I need this because a family member, I need it for a wedding. When someone brings that to your attention, what's your response, or how do you break it down for them to come to the true facts?
Yeah. So every business, well, not every, but most business owners look at their business as their baby. So it's my job to tell them, that your baby is not as pretty as you think it is, but I have to let them down gently. And so I use education. I educate clients. I educate them upon the buyer sanity check, what buyers look for, where the financials have to be, where the EBITDA needs to be for you to sell for $10 million. It can't be at 50,000. You're going to have an EBITDA around $2 million. I show them industry standards. I show them business comps. I show them data to support what I'm saying so they can understand, because it's not that they're stupid or anything. I just think they're uneducated, that they don't understand. And then, what I do too that really helps, Vinny, is I'll say, listen, if the roles were reversed and you were looking to buy this business, would you pay $10 million for it? And when they start to put it on the buyer's hat and step into the buyer's shoes, they're like, no, I would never pay $10 million for this. So they're so focused on what they want and what they feel like they need in order to sell their business and enter into the next phase of their life that they don't really think about it from the buyer's perspective. But when I do that with them, now they get it and they understand it.
How many of your conversations, what percentage of people that you have conversations with about selling their business, is it actually after you have a heart-to-heart with them or lay the true facts to them, do they actually go forward with the sale?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And I would tell you most advisors probably have a 40% success rate, which is really low, right? And sellers who try to sell their own business on their own is about a 40% success rate as well. We have a much higher success rate because we go through these exercises ahead of time. There's a chapter in my book, Exit Rich, that deals with the seller sanity check. When and why should you sell your business? Because timing is everything. So because we do all the work up front, very few of them fail to close. I did have a manufacturing business. It was husband and wife. And they turned down 3 letter of intents, 3 LOIs that I bought them. And they were all great LOIs. They all met the price. They all met the terms, but they kept turning them down. So finally I said, listen, this is it. I'm taking the business off the market. You have to figure out what you want to do next because you keep sabotaging everything. You keep turning down great offers. So I'm not going to keep spending more money marketing your business when you're not going to accept anything. I said, take a few weeks, figure out what you and your wife want to do and come back to me. And they did that. So I would say about 3-4 weeks later, they came back to me and said, you know what? We figured it out. We know what we want to do now with the proceeds of the sale. And they said, we've always been passionate about bed and breakfasts. So we're going to take that money and either buy one or start one. And I said, perfect. Now we have a plan. We have a beginning plan because you really cannot exit a business until you figure out what your beginning strategy is. So the next offer I bought them, they accepted, they closed, and now they're in a bed and breakfast and they're happy. And that's what happens, Vinny, is that business owners get so busy. Like we all have things that we're passionate about, right? When we were young, we all had things that we were excited about, that we were passionate about. But then business owners get really busy running their business, tending to their family, dealing with the everyday stress, that we forget what we were once passionate about, what excites us, right? And so that's what I really try to do with owners is try to figure out what that is.
Well, going back to exciting stuff, right? You talked about how sales was exciting for you.
Yeah.
Right? Do you still feel that rush that you felt when you first started in sales now when you're dealing with basically clients today?
I do. I absolutely do. And I feel it even more because what I'm selling now is not just only a bigger ticket, which means higher commissions, but it's also, most importantly, more fulfilling because I'm helping business owners achieve their goal. I'm helping business owners exit rich, retire rich, because so many business owners, 8 out of 10 businesses won't sell. And these business owners are being forced to sell for pennies on the dollar, close their business, or even worse, file bankruptcy. So it's very fulfilling to me when I can help a business owner build a sustainable, scalable, and when they're ready, sellable business.
Now, we've talked about the idea that you went to one platform, it went good there, went positive here, and kind of working through. Now, something that was out of your control, being from New Orleans, Katrina. Mm-hmm. How was that? Because it's not really something that you did, but it was an outside source that you were kind of that's affecting your business.
Yes. And there's all kinds of catastrophic events that occurred that's outside, external. I call them external catastrophic events. COVID is one of them. There's all kinds of external events that can cause business owners, a lot of heartache, can cause them to literally go out of business. In August 2005, this little teeny tiny storm called Katrina hit, which really devastated New Orleans. And it wasn't so much the hurricane itself as it was that the levees broke. And so New Orleans is already, so many feet below sea level because we're in a fishbowl. And practically 95% of my businesses literally went underwater. And most of my business was in Louisiana at the time, most of it in New Orleans. And so, I really didn't have any inventory to sell. Plus, my clients were devastated, because they were out of business. And so that taught me a lot of lessons. It taught me to diversify. It taught me not to have all my business in one state or one city. It taught me not to just have one revenue source, but, have other businesses as well, not all in M&A. And so diversifying business, diversifying industries, diversifying states and locations.
Do you remember the moment you're trying to build yourself up from that? And I mean, the devastation that you're going through, I mean, I'm assuming a lot of revenue, you're losing it. Was there a moment where you're just kind of almost freaking out and trying to get back on track?
Yeah, my husband would love to be on the show right now because he would tell you I lost my mind like every hour for a year. Yeah, it was really devastating. We couldn't get back into New Orleans. We ended up staying at a friend's house about an hour outside of New Orleans for about, 2 or 3 months, a long time. And it was devastating. I was like, I'm moving back to Texas because I grew up in Texas, I lived in Dallas when I met my husband, who's from Louisiana. And I said, I'm moving back to Texas. We're going to Texas. We're not staying in New Orleans. And it was devastating. And it was extremely stressful for him and for me. For him, because he has multidisciplinary clinics, and 2 of his clinics were completely wiped out by the hurricane. One was blowing off the street, like completely blown away. And the other one was completely underwater. So it was devastating, but I try to put it in perspective because I have a lot of friends who lost not only their business, but they lost their home. They lost everything. And so we had our home and we had our memories, and, that was great. So a lot of people lost all their memories, like all their wedding pictures and pictures of their children being born, etc. So, I try to put it in perspective, but it was very, very stressful. Luckily enough, I was able to sell a business and make a pretty good commission. A guy out of California actually bought the business and relocated it to Florida.
Oh, nice.
That year. So that was good. But it was very stressful times for everybody in Louisiana.
So you're talking about that your husband would say that every hour, throughout the year, you were freaking out. What was bringing you back to kind of some level of normalcy? Was it the idea of putting it in perspective, or was there something else that you kind of went through to bring you back?
He might say every second. I don't know, but he was freaking out too, but I think what, put it back in perspective for me is, number one, I'm not a quitter. I'm extremely resilient. I'm persistent. I'm not going to quit or stay down for long. And, I think what really brought me back was seeing, what my clients were going through and how devastating it was for them, and really trying to help them and focus on them. And I did also own another company at the time. And I was doing a lot of marketing for that company too at the time, bringing MR emails, bringing water, bringing hand sanitizer to clients, just trying to help others and do whatever we can to help others. Kind of got me out of it.
That makes sense.
Snapped me out of it.
Now you've come from a lot. You've transacted a lot of business. You've learned a lot. If you could look back at that young girl, that young woman that had that first wedding company, right? What kind of advice would you give her?
I think I did really well with that company, but the advice that I always would give my younger self, because I get asked this question, but the advice I always would give my younger self is, really align yourself with mentors early on. Align yourself with experts early on. Don't ask people who have never done anything of significance for their advice, because so many people go out to people who have never really built a successful business and ask them for their advice. So I would say align myself with mentors early on, because I really never did that until 2011, 2012. I would also say, make sure you always think long-term. No matter whatever you're doing, Because a lot of people are like, want to go out, want to do this, want to hang out, but none of that really contributes to your long-term goals. Am I making sense?
No,
So, yeah. So really, before you say yes to things, and I'm all about saying yes, but make sure it's the right yes, and make sure that it's aligns with your values, and make sure that it's going to affect you in a positive way long term and get you to where you want to be.
If and you brought up the idea of mentors, and something that I love talking about with people, the simple fact that there's so many quote unquote mentors out there, like you said, fake mentors, real mentors, and like that. How do you find the right mentor for you?
Yeah, so that's probably the tough part. It's kind of like finding the right marketing company. I've been through so many marketing companies that, oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and they just fall very short. I think to find the right mentor, you really need to know, okay, well, what have you done? And what are you trying to accomplish? So if somebody is trying to grow their business, then you don't want to go to a consultant that's never really grown a business before. Am I making sense?
Yeah, definitely.
You want to go to somebody who's really grown a multi-million-dollar, multi-billion-dollar business. If it's in technology, get a mentor in technology. Try to find a mentor in your specific industry, but most importantly, somebody who's built what you're trying to build. Not just get somebody who's on stage speaking all the time, because just because they're on stage speaking doesn't mean that they're the real thing, doesn't mean that they've done it and they're successful. They're just on stage speaking.
Yeah, exactly. Now,
and I've hired some of those people, and they don't, some of them haven't delivered. Some have, some haven't. You got to do your due diligence. Always go Google. I hired a marketing company not too long ago that didn't do anything they said they were going to do. And then I went and Googled them. I Googled them after the fact. And then I found out all this stuff, and I'm like, why didn't I do that beforehand? I know better. A lot of times we get so interested in making a decision and moving forward that we don't really do our due diligence before we hire somebody or align ourselves with someone.
Did you look to hire that company for a sales position because they were able to sell you without looking on Google for you?
Did I hire them for what?
A sales position. When someone's able to sell you without you actually doing the research, something that you always do, they might have been a good salesperson.
Yeah, exactly. Well, they were a good salesperson, and they had. Yeah, I'm not going to say anything else because I don't want to say anything negative about them. But yeah, they were definitely a good salesperson. But just do your due diligence, and you know what? Ask for testimonials. Ask for people that you can actually talk to, and take the time. Don't make the decision too quickly.
So you've written a book, Exit Rich. You've been on stage. You've done speaking engagements. The list is long of all the people that have given their thumbs up about your book, about your speaking engagements. You've shared the stage with so many people. In 5 years from now, right? If we're talking in 5 years, what's next? Where are you going to be?
What's next? Where am I going to be? Well, I'm not going to be. I'm not going to sell my business yet. I would say, I love that. I'm going to have a couple of New York Times bestsellers under my belt. I am obviously going to continue to help business owners. I am going to grow my brand, Seiler Tucker, my M&A firm, and in other cities and states. And so therefore we can, help more people, help more business owners to build their business and to sell their business.
And if a business owner is listening right now and they're looking to sell their business, what's the best way of reaching your company, reaching yourself? What's the best way of reaching out?
Well, I would encourage everyone to go to exitrichbook.com. And I just want to really, point out to the fact that exitrichbook.com is not just about selling a business. Because everybody that wants to sell a business, not everybody, but 80% of them are not going to be able to sell. So Exit Rich is all about building a sustainable, scalable business that works for you rather than you working for it, so that when you are ready, you don't become a statistic and you have a sellable asset so you can exit rich and not exit poor. So I would encourage everybody to go read Exit Rich. And can I put the plug in where they can buy the book?
Please.
Yeah. So they can go. So everybody, you can buy it on Amazon. Or you can go buy it at exitrichbook.com, and it's for $24.79, which includes shipping, which is less expensive than Amazon right now because we're in pre-sales. And so the minute that you buy the book from exitrichbook.com, we will email you the digital copy so you don't have to wait for the book for the launch date. Plus, we will send the hardcover to your doorstep. Plus, we will give you a lifetime membership to Exit Rich Book Club, where we have video training content of me, going through deep dive strategies of what you need to do to build your business to run on what we call all 6 Ps that we talk about in Exit Rich. Plus, we have documents, lots and lots of documents. So a lot of clients will ask me, Michelle, what does an employee handbook look like? What's a non-compete look like? What's an organizational chart look like? Or even sellers, they've never seen a sample letter of intent or a sample due diligence checklist or sample closing docs. All of these documents are available for your review and your download, and it will cost you about $20,000 to $25,000 if you tried to buy this or try to get your attorney to draft these. So they're available to you for free. And then we also are offering a 30-day free membership into Club CEOs, which is an entrepreneurial group that I started where we do hot seats, masterminds, and Q&As. So that's exitrichbook.com.
So if you're listening, you're not getting a book. You're basically getting a lifestyle. Basically everything you could want in that $24.95.
Yeah, and the other thing too that I didn't mention, Vinny, is that Sharon Lecter is my co-author, who wrote Rich Dad Poor Dad with Robert Kiyosaki. She's a New York Times bestselling author 5 times. She's a CPA. She's a financial literacy expert. She was advisor to Obama and several other presidents. And her husband is an intellectual property attorney. So she sprinkles little mentoring corners. She calls them mentoring corners after every single chapter from her perspective. Plus, the book was endorsed by Steve Forbes and Kevin Harrington, original Shark on Shark Tank, wrote the foreword. We got Les Brown, Brian Tracy, Tom Hopkins. Like you said, we got everybody. Jack Canfield, Mark Victor Hansen.
Yeah, if it's in the financial sector, you probably have them on the book, or they've or you met them or been on the stage with them. So no, it's definitely impressive. If anyone listening right here is looking to take advantage, just kind of curious about it, maybe you haven't even started a business, but you kind of want to get a game work of kind of what's possible, having the information. Reach out, Exit Rich, get the book, buy the book. I'm going to buy the book and take a read. And if you already live in Southern California and looking to basically maybe sell your business and get out of Southern California, don't worry, I can help you out with the residential aspect of it and sell your property. So 2 birds with 1 stone. We're good to go.
Yes, and I can sell the business. Also, they can text Michelle to 888-526-5750. And then all my social media plus all my websites pop up.
Perfect. Well, thank you again, Michelle, for being on the platform. Thank you guys for listening. Please subscribe. Please share. Buy the book. Have a great one, everyone.